G'day everybody, this is Adam from Titanic Mythology and Superstition. Welcome to another show. Sorry that it's been a little bit of time since one's come out. Things are just getting frantic leading up to Christmas. Now, as I'm saying that guys, I'm just going to do a bit of a begging session here. If you've really enjoyed listening to my content, enjoying what I do, finding it interesting, please donate to the Patreon page or the PayPal page there. Look guys, one donation of $5 or even $1 can go a very long way, and I want to do what I'm doing on a really permanent basis. I've got a lot of ideas for documentaries that I want to do and that I've got in the pipeline, and I'd love for you guys to participate in that. There's a show that I want to do very soon about Captain Smith and what happened to him during the sinking, and I'd really love a co-host to join me on that as well. So that's what I mean about participating. So I'd love you to join. I'd love you to support the show. Just the smallest donation would be great, and I'd be able to keep doing this and keep the memory really of the Olympic class ships alive. I do want to touch on the Olympic and the Britannic through the series that I'm doing. So it's just not the Titanic that I'll be touching on, but we will not digress to this level anymore. I'll stop boring you, but as I said, the links are there in the description, so guys, please help me out on this one. Okay, today's just going to be a bit of quick facts, guys. This is actually real information, and this is part of Titanic history that I'll be doing as well. So little quick facts, 10 quick facts that you might or might not know about the Titanic. And we will start with number one, which is, at the time, as most of us all know, the Titanic was the largest moving object known to man to enter service, any ship. She was around the 269-meter mark in length. So that's in the feet world. That's 882 feet. So just under 3 Olympics. No, just over. What are we? 50 meters for Olympic swimming pool. So 50, 100, 150, 200, 250. So just over 5 Olympic swimming pools. So it was a pretty decent length. And she was at the time the largest moving object on Earth. That was massive. I mean, consider it, guys, that at the time the Mauretania, the Lusitania, they were some of the biggest ships in the world. White Star had its big ships, but these were big ships regardless. And along came the White Star Line and Harlem Wharf and said, well, buggy's all, we're going to build these ships 100 feet bigger, I believe it was, than any of the other ships that had been built. So this was a massive undertaking at the time, and massive for anyone to see it. And come up, 112 odd years later now, a bit longer and or a bit less, sorry. And the biggest passenger ship right now, with the information I've found, it might be a bit off, but it's the Harmony of the Sea. And she's measuring at 362 meters. So, really, she's only just under 100 meters longer than the Titanic was. When you think about it, it's not that much in that length of time, is it? But the biggest moving ship in the world at the moment, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's a cargo ship or something along those lines. But yeah, I'm not real sure. So if you guys can comment and let me know, that would be fantastic. Okay, so number 2. The Titanic, when she was at sea, she was burning around 600 tons of coal a day. 600 tons. That's huge. And not just that, guys. That coal was being hand shoveled into the furnaces. So it wasn't being put in by machines. It had individual men, 176 individual men, piling that coal into the furnaces with a shovel. Nothing but a shovel. And during the day, about 100 tons of ash was injected into the sea. 100 tons of ash. That's huge. That's a huge amount of ash to be dumped into the sea. You just think of how hot it would have been for all of those men down in those furnace rooms, in front of those huge furnaces, shoveling coals. The doors had to be open for them to get the coal in there. So that just, it's unthinkable, isn't it? The amount of heat that would have been generated from those things. Alright, so another interesting fact, the Titanic's interior was loosely based off the Ritz Hotel in London. Now, some of the things on board to do, which really, let's face it, for the first class, the second and third class really had crap all to do on board, was, of course, the gym, the pool, the Turkish baths. The first class passengers had a kennel for their dogs. They had a squash court, and they even had their own newspaper on board, the Atlantic Daily Bulletin. There you go. Number 4, there was about 20,000 bottles of beer, 1,500 bottles of wine, and 8,000 cigars on board, but all of these were just for the use of the first class passengers. Of course, I mean, why would you want to look after anyone else? Come on, seriously. Okay. Okay, the grand staircase on the Titanic. The grand staircase that is a pivotal thing that we all know, love, and just see dearly all the time when it comes to Titanic. And, of course, Olympic. And I'm not sure whether Britannic ever had hers installed. But, I mean, it's a beautiful part. The grand staircase descended down 7 of Titanic's 10 decks. So it went down quite a bit, but it didn't go all the way. I mean, you've got to think that below that would have been third class passengers, so why would White Star or Harlan Wolf care about how they got up? I mean, she had the oak panelling, the bronze cherubs, and it had the paintings. It was exquisite. I mean, whether it was for the first class passengers or not, it was beautiful. There are replicas currently built, and they're around. I mean, there's one in Las Vegas in the Titanic exhibition there. There's one at Bronson, Missouri, I believe there is, and I believe there's one in England. I'm not sure where, but I believe there's one there. Now, the staircase, number 6, the staircase at the White Swan Hotel in Aldwych contains the barristers from the grand staircase of the Olympic. Now, it's presumed that they're identical, so I mean, if you wanted a look or a feel of what they would have been like, they are there for you to have a look at. Now, number 7. Only 16 lifeboats and 4 collapsibles were carried on the Titanic. I mean, look, at the time, that was more than Titanic was legally obliged to carry. I'm not condoning it, but you've got to think of the era, the time that the ships were being built, 1912, 1911, 1909. And the laws for the lifeboats were done in 1897, I think it was. So the laws were outdated with how quick these ships were being built and how big they were getting. All in all, White Star actually had more lifeboats than they were legally required to have. The boats that the Titanic had on board would only accommodate, if they were all full, if they were all packed to the limits, they would only hold 1,178 people, because that's only about 1/3 of the total capacity of people and officers and crew that the Titanic could carry. I mean, it's not even close to acceptable, but I mean, it was more than legally required. White Star legally didn't do anything wrong. Morally, well, that's a different story altogether, isn't it? Now, during her construction, number 8, during her construction, there was injuries, there was deaths. I mean, it was a common thing when ships were being built in the early 19th century for deaths to occur when they were building. I mean, that happened everywhere. Here in Australia, when they built the Sydney Harbour Bridge, there were deaths on the Sydney Harbour Bridge. So it wasn't uncommon for deaths to occur when large things were being built back then. The safety practices that we have now just weren't about. And there were 246 injuries and 2 deaths during the 26 months construction in Belfast. Now, from what I understand, the 2 deaths were pretty damn good for the size of the ship. I've heard around the place that they averaged it out for every 100 feet, I think, of a build during the time, they predicted 1 death. So for 2 deaths, they did pretty good, I guess, at the time. Number 9, second last, 20 horses were required to carry the main anchor. That's a huge feat. I think it was those big draft horses as well. So it's not just normal horses. That was those big bugger of draft horses that dragged this through the streets of Belfast and to get to the docks where she was being built. And I believe that people actually were on the streets to watch her being carried down there, which was incredible, wasn't it? I mean, that would have been a huge thing to see for anyone of that time. Okay, number 10, guys, number 10. About 100,000 people turned up to watch Titanic when she was launched on May 31st, 1911. That's a huge amount of people, 100,000 people in 1911 watching the beauty of Titanic going to the ocean. It would have been a beautiful sight to see. And look, I mean, I would have loved to be in there. I would have loved to see any of the 3 Olympic class ships being launched, really. I mean, just because I'm a Titanican, or whatever they call us, I would have loved to see any of the 3. It just would have been a beautiful sight to see any of them be launched. Okay, guys, that's 10 facts that you may or may not know. I might have got things wrong. Tell me if I have. I'm just human. Guys, thanks very much for listening. And if you can support me, please do, guys. This is Adam, and I will talk to you next time.